Welcome to Seattle, home of Wizards of the Coast and the latest episode of Inside R&D with me, your host, Rich Hagan, showcasing all the latest toys in Fate Reforged. You know, there are a few certainties in Magic, but one of them is that time is linear. Then again, in Magic, things are never what they used to be.
Fate Reforged is the linchpin of the entire block. When we started with the idea that we would have a large, small, large structure in which the small set would draft with both the first large set and the second large set. In fact, a lot of the early design, the exploratory design, was us answering the question, why? Why would you do that?
So I came back and I said, time travel. You go back in time to the small set and change something. It's like the Ray Bradbury story where the guy goes back in time to the Cretaceous period, steps on a butterfly by mistake, and when he goes back to the future, everything has changed.
Our hero comes to the present day, sees something is horribly wrong, goes back to the past, corrects things, makes it different, and then we come back in the final set to see the present again, but a different present.
When we left Sarkin in Khans of Tarkir, he had fought his way across his homeworld. A lot of people very hostile to him. The Marduk Khan Zergo despises him. And finally he made his way to Ugin's grave into this time portal, which he didn't even know was what he was looking for. And so he's gone back in time.
And so when we're figuring out a time in the past, what we realized is we needed some event that was fundamental to Magic so that when Sarkin went back in the past, it wasn't just a random event, it was a pinnacle event. Well, how about Ugin Bolas fighting Ugin? How much, like the two dragons of Magic just competing against each other, in which we kind of know, if you believe Ugin Bolas, that Ugin didn't win that. Well, what if we changed that?
This was the big turning point. Ugin falls, he dies, and the dragon tempests, which spawn dragons on Tarkir, go out because they're tied to him metaphysically. But this time, Sarkin is here. And although he wasn't able to intervene in the fight and help Ugin actually win against Bolas, which is what he would have liked, he is able to intervene and stop Ugin from dying. He has this Hedron shard from the Eye of Ugin on Zendikar, constructed by Ugin in the future, and he's able to use it to create this protective magical cocoon around Ugin that Ugin will slumber in for over 1,000 years.
We've heard of Ugin. Ugin showed up in names and things and flavor text, and but we've never met Ugin. Well, if Sarkin is going to go save Ugin, we gotta see Ugin, and so we decided we needed to make an Ugin. Now it's tricky because A, we're going in the past, and pre-mending the Planeswalkers were a little different than they were post-mending, and also there's a lot of build-up. We're going to meet Ugin. Like, it's one thing when you make a brand new Planeswalkers no one ever heard of, but it's another when you finally deliver on something that people have had expectations for. And so there was a lot of pressure.
It's becoming very commonplace now that we set up what are called mini teams during development. That's each member on my development team chooses some element of the set that we think is really important. Usually, like, just what are the key elements? What are the most important things about the set? What do we make? What do we really have to make sure we get right? Ugin felt like one of those. Ben was very excited to take on the challenge of leading a team.
Fate Reforged was my first main booster release development team, so I was a little bit starstruck as far as trying to figure out how I was going to lead the process to create this really central character to the story. He also needed to be really powerful. He's the enemy of Ugin Bolas in the story, so he needed to be on a comparable power level. So we were talking really high mana cost. Like, I was negotiating 7, and that was even, 7 is too low. So we ended up, no lower than 8. And, making a 8 mana card that shows up in standard is a little difficult. As each additional mana you add on, it's so much more difficult to get to. So we really looked at what can we do with Ugin that just goes over the top. Like, if you're getting to 8 mana, this is what you want to do.
What's unique about Ugin is that even though he costs 8 mana, as soon as he comes down, he can catch you up from even the most unfavorable positions. His -X ability sweeps the board of any colored permanent, so it can remove whatever your opponent was doing to you. And once Ugin stays on the table, he just sits there and sort of gains you an advantage over the course of the game. His +2 deals 3 damage to any creature or player. It can take out weenie creatures or eventually kill off your opponent. And his ultimate is really cool. It's sort of a reverse of Nicol Bolas's ultimate in that it does sort of all the beneficial things as a reverse of what Nicol Bolas does to you.
On this world where you have Khans, why does someone name himself or become named Sarkin Vol? Well, no one on Tarkir calls him that. His name is Vol. It's kind of this pathetic, groveling name that he never really took to. And it's not clear whether other people gave him this name, Sarkin, in jest, or he very arrogantly gave it to himself. But it means great Khan, highest Khan, the Khan of Khans. It is like introducing yourself as saying, "Hi, I'm Super President." That makes it a very dangerous name to say. Zergo takes offense at it. Bolas never calls him Sarkin because that would have been lending him power. Ugin, interestingly, does.
Once we knew we were doing a time travel story, we said, okay, we have to structure this correctly. We knew that we were in the present, we knew we went to the past, and then we knew we had the alternate present. And so in order to make that work, I needed to have some mechanic that ran through the 3 sets that was the framework, that a mechanic that sort of demonstrated what we were doing. So what I wanted was a mechanic that you got to see, then you got to see a proto version of it, and then you got to see an alternate version of it. After some experimentation, we realized that morph was the perfect thing to do.
Ugin taught morph magic to humans, gave it to them in an effort to try to create more of an equilibrium between humans and dragons. He did not want to see humans wipe out dragons or dragons wipe out humans. He considers them both important to what Tarkir is. And he's very much about balance, to the point that he even advocated not destroying the Eldrazi to keep whatever mysterious ecological balance they might be a part of.
When you manifest a card, you put it onto the battlefield face down. Now, you can manifest a card from pretty much anywhere. Some do it from the top card of your library, others from exile or graveyards. Wherever it's coming from, it's going to land on the battlefield and be a face down 2/2 creature. It's colorless, it has no names, no creature types, no abilities, and no mana cost.
We initially had it to where you had no other way to turn it up. If you just had to kind of get lucky and hit a morph creature. Or you had to do some kind of cool and summon trick where you picked it up, put it back down, something like that. But ultimately, we play tested with, you can turn your manifested creature face up if it's a creature, and it added a lot of drama. It's something Dave Humphreys came up in design. So we wove that into the set by trying to make sure all the dragons, the actual creature type dragons in the set, were the most amazing things to turn face up when you had manifested them. So that's how Manifest kind of cemented its place as Ugin's magic in Fate Reforged.
Now, these creatures are going to be really familiar for anyone that played with the Morph ability, which appeared last set, Khans of Tarkir. They kind of look the same on the battlefield. They're 2/2, they're face down. Now remember, with Morph, you could turn them face up at any time by paying a Morph cost. Manifested cards are a little different. If the card itself is a creature card, you can turn it face up by paying its mana cost. Now, if you manifested a card that isn't a creature card, then you can't turn it face up at all. It just stays as a 2/2 creature. But your opponent doesn't know the difference.
You really get into these interesting mind games where you're attacking with your face down 2/2, and you may be able to turn it up, you may not be able to. Your opponent can't predict what it is. Unlike Morph, even if they've memorized every single creature in the set, they still don't know what range of casting costs or power and toughness this could really be here.
Right into Being is one of my favorite manifest cards in the set. I first picked it a lot, second picked it, third picked it, take as many as I can get, really. The ability to both smooth out your draw and pick which card you're going to manifest, it puts great pressure on your opponent.
We didn't want it to be a huge, major defining thing about Standard, but at the same time, we wanted it to show up. I feel like most of our mechanics we want to show up to some degree. Whisperwood Elemental is certainly one of the foremost cards where a lot of the power on the card is just that it's making creature tokens every turn. Some of the power is that you can turn those up and have some surprises, so it's sort of the best of the both worlds where you have a cool, powerful card, and some of its power is in Manifest, and we want that to come up, but that's not, the swinginess of that card is not necessarily in the Manifest itself.
So one of the concerns, as soon as I said we're doing a time travel story, and as soon as people figured out we're going back in the past and changing something, one of the big fears is, oh no, is everything I know about Magic's story going to change? Is everything I've learned now thrown to the wind? And the answer is no, no, no. The creative team, it was very important. One of their mandates was that they wanted to cocoon the effect to this world. That Tarkir is fundamentally changed, but the Magic multiverse is not. The ramifications, what happens here, will go on to affect the outside world, but nothing that happens here affected the outside world.
Even though Fate Reforged was my first development team on a main booster release, I did have a sense that we were doing something different.
It's a middle set, but is unlike any other second set ever. You come between a big set and another big set. You have to show things that were true in the first set and that will become true in the third set. You can't have too many mechanics in your middle set or you save nothing for the third set. Your middle set is also too complicated.
Being able to position this set as a beginning and as an end, but also as a middle set for the block in terms of the way the set rolls out and constructed is played.
We want to put lots and lots of teasers in the middle set that will show you what could happen in the third set, but without spoiling too much.
To find cards that play one way with cons and then another way with the third set in the block.
Given that you have this and this and this and this and this and this, all these little obstacles, can you draw a path through if that path is a card or a mechanic or a set?
You definitely had to be looking at each of the sets, seeing how things were moving, ask the other leads, like, oh, well, it's going to be better if you move this to avoid what's in that set or vice versa. And yeah, they were very, very much interweaved, and a lot of the joys of working on this set was just trying to find ways that you could make cards that worked well or in specific ways with one set and then just differently with the next set.
So I got a letter when Khans of Tarkir came out. And the letter was, I love dragons. They are the most awesome thing in Magic. Why would you go to a world where all the dragons are dead? I love dragons. Why would you do that? And in my head, I'm thinking of you are in for such an awesome, awesome time, dragon lover.